Alright, welcome back. This week, while I'm painting in the background, I want to talk about falling off track with my goals and a few things I did to get back on the wagon as fast as possible and continue making progress. As always, a quick disclaimer, I'm not some expert on sticking to your goals or anything I talk about, I'm just sharing my experience. I'm going to be talking about this from the perspective of losing weight, but I use these same principles and apply it to other goals as well. So this year, one of my main goals has been to continue losing the excess weight and get in shape. Overall, it had been going pretty well. I'd lost about 7 pounds and got down to the lowest weight I'd ever been as an adult. But over the past few weeks, it's been a lot more challenging to stay on track, and I slipped into a pattern that I knew wasn't going to be sustainable. I would overindulge one day, and then over the next few days I would wake up, do a bunch of exercise, eat way too few calories, and try to make up for the binge I'd just had. If this had just happened once, it wouldn't have really been a big deal, but I noticed that it happened 3 times over the 2 weeks. I would binge, feel bad the next few days, do way too much exercise, eat too few calories, which then led to another binge. This leads me to the first thing I do that helps me get back on track, which is catching it early. I find that the longer I fall off track, the harder it is to recover from it. So to me, noticing it early is half the battle. I review my goals every week, and if I have a bad week, that's fine. I just accept that they're going to happen from time to time. But if I find that I'm really struggling with something 2 weeks in a row, I know some change has to be made. After that, I start thinking about what caused me to slide off. For me, as I've been thinking about this and all of the other times I've fallen off track, I noticed that it always comes down to the same two things. The first is overstretching, and the second is overcompensating. So I'll start with overstretching. January had been really productive, which was great, but it was also a lot. I worked pretty much constantly because I had to work out how to do a lot of new things, and the only time off I really took was one Friday night where my flatmates and I watched a few movies. By the time I finally got to having a couple of days off in the first week of February, I was quickly approaching burnout and I went way overboard. I stayed up way too late both nights, ate an ungodly amount of bad food, and got pretty drunk as well. Great combination right there. The reason this happened was because I hadn't taken enough time off throughout January to relax and make it sustainable. So when I had those 2 days off, I had this urge to make up for the downtime I'd missed out on. To reduce the chances of this happening in the future, I've scheduled a full day off every week and a cut-off time for work every night. I have to stop working by 8 p.m. and spend 2 to 3 hours relaxing and having some fun. Just by adding this in, it's already made a really big difference and it feels much more sustainable and balanced. So that was the first part, overstretching. Now for the second part, overcompensating. Waking up on the day after my binge of a weekend, I weighed myself and the only thing I could think was mistakes were made. I'd gained 5 pounds and now I felt the need to make up for it as fast as possible. As I said earlier, this caused me to overcompensate by eating way too few calories and exercising too much. It helped me lose weight, but it also led to more days where I binged and gained the weight back. What I should have done instead was accept that I'd overindulged and got back on track with the diet and exercise regime that was working for me. But because I felt those awesome feelings of slight panic and guilt at my weight gain, I fell into wanting to get rid of the weight as fast as possible, instead of focusing on the long game. I think of this like a car with a faulty engine. Before I get into this example, you should know that a can of baked beans probably knows more about cars than I do, but just go with it. Let's say I've got to drive 100 miles a day to reach my destination. After 3 days, the engine overheats and I can't drive it for a day. At this point, I could go and get the car fixed, but that seems like it's going to take a while and I want to reach my destination as fast as possible. So instead, I try to drive 200 miles the next day to make up for the lost time. This puts more stress on the engine, which makes the problem worse, and quickly leads to the car breaking down completely. Thinking about it this way reminds me that even if I have to take some extra time to properly fix the problem, and sacrifice some short-term progress, it's better to do that than push too hard, make some short-term gains, but fall off completely a few weeks down the line. So after a couple of weeks of being stuck overcompensating and watching my weight flip-flop all over the place like a fish out of water, I went back to the diet and exercise plan that was working before. In the week since I've done that, I've lost all the weight I gained and an extra pound on top of that, bringing me down to a new low weigh-in. So, the 3 things I did to get back on track were 1. Keeping track of my goals and catching the slide early. 2. Looking at what caused that first fall off and seeing if there's anything I can do to reduce the chances of it happening in the future. 3. Accepting that I messed up and getting back on track with what was working long term, not trying to make up for it quickly. Doing those 3 steps pushed me back on track and actually made me take a more sustainable and balanced approach than I was before. So that's my thoughts on getting back on track. I'd love to know what you do to get back on track with your goals, so let me know down in the comments. This week, from a painting point of view, I've been focusing much more on adding some abstract elements to get more of the feel that I want and add some more visual interest. There's a lot to explore here, and I'm excited to see where it takes me. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please drop me a like and subscribe if you want to know when my next video comes out. Take it easy.